Hello, everyone. This is the psychic predictions for September 2023. So, the first thing that was coming to me in regards to the month coming up here is I was seeing this graph and this line that seemed to be going down, and it looked like a stock market crash. Not a crash, sorry, but a downward motion. And I was getting the sense that this represents some aspect of the economy for September. Um, Now, it may also be the stock market, but I'm more so getting that the stock market is going to go down in October. However, it could also start to go down September as well. This has a lot to do with the overall energy of the planet. And when I was tuning into that, I was seeing it as this energy of things breaking down for the month of September. And I know last month I said that it was the eye of the storm, so to speak. And I believe that I was a little bit off on that. It was more so that the first part of the month was the eye of the storm, and then the rest of the month, there's the Maui fires. I said the second half of the month there would be something scary in the news that would cause people to have a sense of fear. And I believe that was the Maui fires. But I would like to correct myself and say that last month was not the eye of the storm. It was only the beginning of the month, and it's already kind of started. And I'm seeing this type of energy sort of continuing into September, but really more so ramping up in October and November. And there's some interesting energies in November coming our way. Of course, when energy affects the astral or the energy fields of people, it doesn't necessarily manifest in a positive way. Sometimes it creates chaos. And so, because of the upgrades to the earth frequencies, a lot of the times, even though it's in the long term a positive, in the short term it can be a negative and cause destruction. So, moving on to Bitcoin. For September, what I'm seeing is that there is a gain up until the middle of the month, and then it seems to hold. It seems like a pretty decent month. It holds that for a good while, and then there's some volatility at the end of the month, and it could go down a little bit towards the very end of the month. Also, this volatility that I'm seeing seems to be the beginning of a situation moving into October and November, similarly to the energy that I was just talking about. Bitcoin seems to be going along a similar pattern where it may lose some value. It may be volatile and kind of a dangerous time to be holding Bitcoin, but maybe a good time to be buying Bitcoin. So, I won't go into details, but I go into more details on my Patreon about detail. And you can always give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you've watched it so far to this point. Now, moving on to Ukraine. I see Ukraine weakening for September. And last month I was saying that it seemed like people were starting to come to terms that Ukraine is not going to defeat Russia in the way that people thought. And so September, I'm seeing this becoming more so admitted in the news, even more so. Um, there was this sensation that I was getting of being in water, as if going down a water slide, and it's like when you're in the elevator and it goes down really fast, you get airborne, and it's that same feeling of rushing down and then like coming back up. And this had something to do with Ukraine, as if there may be something like the rug being pulled out from under them, and they quickly fall and then they come back up. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that was the sense that I was getting around Ukraine for September coming up here. As far as Russia, I saw Russia holding the line. That was the sense I was getting. They're not so offensive as much as kind of more like an offensive defense in the manner or in the strategy of wearing down Ukraine over time. It seems to be what they're trying to do. And I'm seeing more advancing later on around November. So moving on to Joe Biden. I see Joe Biden cutting a ribbon as if making a new commitment to foreign policy. I also see Xi Jinping, the president of China, clapping along with many other world leaders. And this is interesting because supposedly, Biden and Xi Jinping don't get along. There's a lot of, you know, disagreements between the U.S. and China. However, for some reason, I saw him clapping, and I got the sense that this could be related to the Belt and Road Initiative in some way, or it may be helping in some way. So there may just be more agreements between the US and China coming up here, or some sort of international agreement that may benefit China. I also got the sense that there's a push from behind the scenes that's a international force driving Biden to work more with China. And I've spoken about this before a couple months ago or so, where there's a change going on with Joe Biden. I went further into detail on my Patreon. But this seems to be a push, an international push, but I want to say I've heard a lot of people talk about there being a agenda for China to basically take over the world with the help of whatever you want to call the elitists, the international globalists or whatever. This is a theory out there that I've heard. And I want to say that what I'm seeing is not that there is an agenda for China to take over the world and be the leader, but more so for there to be international policies to simply take advantage of a system that's already in place, because the Chinese economy basically runs most of the world. Most things are made in China. Well, I don't know if that's true, but a lot of things are made in China. And so it's just taking advantage of a system that's already in place. However, I did get the sense there is an agenda here, an international business profit agenda to basically create an international corporate government. So it's not that there's a government of a territory of land. It's more so that there is a international corporate government that controls trade, controls money, controls the laws around corporations. And instead of countries, it would be corporations that run the world. So that's the agenda that I'm seeing. So moving on, for more about September, I was seeing rain, and I was getting the sense that there could be more flooding in September. I also was getting the sense that gas prices may go up. I saw Donald Trump um, continuing on despite some legal setbacks. I don't see him, being stopped or anything like that, but I do get that towards the end of 2024 he may start to see setbacks on some level, although I don't get the sense that these are legal setbacks as much as just popularity not being as great as he would like sometime around the end of 2024. And just for the hell of it, I tuned into RFK, who's running, and what I'm sensing from him is that he has a big influence, but I don't really see him being likely to win. Now, I did do a full video on RFK, so if you're interested in that, I encourage you to search for that on my channel search engine. There's a little search bar on my YouTube channel, and you can search there for RFK. But I did see a brown-skinned man as popping up having a good chance in the debates. I don't know who this is. It's just not black, but a brown-skinned man. The next thing that was coming up for me was sharks. Again, back to September coming up here. Now, I did see Crypto Viewing made a video about predicting shark attacks recently. And so I almost didn't include this because I felt like I was just kind of just repeating what's already been said out there. But it does seem to be something that is increasing. And I was getting the sense that they're coming closer to land. And when I tuned into this further, what I was getting was that there's a signal coming from somewhere near the North Pole, possibly Greenland, like the very tip of Greenland, but it could also be actually somewhere slightly north of Greenland, maybe northeast, just a tad bit of Greenland, maybe some sort of island out there that's not really on a map, because I looked on a map and that kind of area, I wasn't seeing anything there. So it's possible that there is little small islands that are not shown on the map. But I was getting that there's this signal coming from there that is affecting the behavior of the sharks and could have a effect on many other things, but it seemed specific to the sharks predominantly. And I was getting that this has something to do with the frequencies shifting on Earth as well, and how those two things kind of interact with each other. Now, again, this may shift more leading into October and November as well, because I see these frequency shifts really ramping up a whole bunch in the coming months. That's why I was calling it the storm coming, because it was kind of like a storm of energy as far as the frequency increasing on the planet. So by 2024, we'll be in a totally different frequency than we are right now. And if you want to know what that generally looks like, well, it can start off as disasters, chaos, disruption, but in the long term, it creates more cooperation, more integration of compartmentalized aspects of life. It's like everything just kind of comes together more. There's not just like different parts of your mind or different actions that don't really line up. It's more like things are more in alignment, I guess you could say. More integrated, more harmonious on some level. There's also just less time for toxic BS from the past, basically. It's kind of like just letting go of that. So that's what's happening as the frequency is increasing on Earth. So this may sound contradictory, but the energy on another level, if you look at it kind of through a different lens or from a different angle, it's calming down for September. Um, in a way where it's almost like things are just slowing down, I guess you could say. But then they suddenly pick up, and we may feel sudden inspiration and a drive to do something new in the following months after September. But for now, it's best to just focus on maintaining your life and working out the kinks while the energy is still somewhat calm. This is going to have an effect on the 3D world, or the physical world, you could call it, by stimulating a sense of survival and responsibility, um, in the way that people may just have that on their mind more. So the storm is not here. The energetic storm is not here quite yet, but things are starting to break down to make room for it in October and November. I mean, everything is relative here. On some level, the storm has already started with Maui and lots of changes going on the planet, but the real storm that I'm talking about is more of an energetic storm that is more so going to hit October and November, but you can still feel the effects leading up to it already. So, what is this month good for? September is good for slowing down to proofread things, and that's more symbolic in the sense of proofreading your life, so to speak. I guess that could be literal as well. Um, Proofreading documents. Also, focusing on details is really beneficial for the energy of September coming up here. Keeping things simple and efficient and focusing on practicality. So, those are things that the general energy of the month is supporting. So, what is the energy of the month not vibing with so well? The message that I got was spending too much time in the bathtub, and that's the way it came through to me. That was more symbolic, and then when I asked what is that really about, I got that this is more so about being in your own world, being kind of cut off from the outside world and outside influences, and kind of being in your own head too much. So that's something to avoid for the month coming up. So the advice, again, kind of strange advice here. I ask Spirit for some general advice, and I'm just going to say the way that it came through. It can come through very strange sometimes, but I got do not wet yourself due to anxiety, I would add in. There is plenty more to come, and what is happening now may be reversed or changed into something completely new. That was the first part of advice. The second part was just ride the wave, in other words. There may be worries on the mind that aren't of any help. It might be best to not focus on the future so much, and instead just live day to day and moment to moment. Then I got the phrase, there's enough going on in the world to make a change. You are not the change. Take a step back. And the way that I would interpret this is to mean that you do not have to get caught up in the volatility of life and to just enjoy the simple things for the month. If I was to wrap it all up, I would just say the overall advice is just enjoy the simple things for September. Alright, I'd also like to mention that I am continuing on my free sign up for my Patreon, so you can sign up for my Patreon page where I post all sorts of stuff I don't post on Facebook or post to the public because it's a little controversial, and I like to get a little more speculative into all sorts of things that are coming up for me and speak my mind a little bit more there. So if you want a free trial, I am extending that through September, actually, because I didn't really make it very well known. So I'm continuing to do that, so you can get a free week access to my Patreon page where you will have access to hundreds of different people. I have done deep readings on, just reading them blind, not knowing who I'm reading either. So it's very authentic. It's not like my own preconceived ideas because I didn't even know who they were when I was reading them. Also, I do readings not blind too. Sometimes I do know who I'm reading. I do all sorts of readings about future events as well as continuous Bitcoin updates and things of that nature, as well as cryptocurrency predictions. So join my Patreon, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. The link will actually I have a video where I go over more of it, so if you would like to see a preview of my Patreon page, I will try and put that up somewhere around here, so try and find that video and check that out. Otherwise, the link to my Patreon page will be below this video in the description, so check that out. Free access for this month. Thank you for watching and have a great day, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not yet. I always appreciate that. Alright, take it easy.